Guys, there has been a huge evolution in the world of trick riding, and with this it's led to a massive development of many different types of saddles. So if you're coming to buy your first trick riding saddle, the world can be quite daunting. Now my first thing I will say is always seek professional advice, cannot stress that enough, but hopefully this video will give you a good insight to the various different types of trick riding saddles you will find out in the world today, and hopefully just point you in a little bit more of a direction for the style that you might need. Trick riding saddles. Guys, there has been a huge and super impressive evolution in the world of trick riding, and with this it's led to various different types of saddles being made these days, which is obviously quite daunting if it's the first time you're coming to buy a trick riding saddle. Now the first thing I will say is you need to find yourself a professional to help you. Do not try to do this alone, whatever you do. Please, please, please ask somebody. But with that aside, I have managed to ask 3 friends that have got fabulous saddles, and they are going to show you and tell you a little bit about their saddles to hopefully set you on the right track for what type of saddle might suit you best.
Hey guys, my name is Kat Pickering, and this is my trick saddle. So my trick saddle is pretty bog standard as far as sort of modern Cossack trick saddle goes. It's got the cushion, which is great, probably a little over padded for anyone that wanted to do any vaulting, but for girls tricks it's pretty much the ideal girls trick riding saddle. Again, like pretty standard stirrups. So yeah, they're rounded a little bit just to help with the wings. So yeah, but probably the most interesting thing about my saddle is I have a hoop saddle, which is slightly different to the pommel. This makes certain tricks easier and certain tricks harder. So for example, the Tytherleigh trick, for example, arabesque, whichever name you want to give it, is obviously a lot easier because you can sort of put your hand over the top. If you were actually in the trick, you would be like this. And it gives you a good grip rather than kind of having to move your hand around a single pommel. So that's kind of why I really like the hoop. I also like my back handle. Again, oops, I've got a finger in there. Again, the reason I like my back handle is it's quite easy to get a hold of if you're hanging upside down, and it's nice and solid. I find sometimes the looser ones are not so easy to hold on to. Otherwise, there's nothing really that exciting about my saddle. The reason I had my saddle made in plain black leather is because I do a lot of filming. So if that was on a film set, my saddle would hide pretty easily in amongst any other black saddles. Whereas some of the fancier ones for the shows, they obviously wouldn't hide so well in sort of a filming environment. So mine is a little bit plain, but I really like it for that reason, and it also means I'm not so precious about the saddle. So one of the things I really like about my saddle is that it is plain. It kind of fits in everywhere. I don't ever worry about what it kind of, you know, if it gets messy or thrown down in the mud. I'm not really worried about my saddle at all. But I think my least favourite thing about it is that it's not fancy, and I wish it was fancy because, you know, most people that are kind of, they're trick riding, they have a nice fancy saddle for their show, and mine's kind of plain, and you know, that's a shame. I think in terms of cost, I bought it new at £1,500. That's probably quite expensive really for what it is. However, I've not had any real issues with anything, and I've had it over 3 years now. I got it sort of made with double thickness girths as well, more for comfort of the horse but also for security, but otherwise I've not really had any issues, so I think that's okay. But you probably secondhand you'd be looking at 800 to 900 quid for a saddle like this, just because obviously you've got little bits of wear and tear on the saddle. So if I was looking to buy a saddle, my main advice would be don't buy straight away, because it's going to be super important that you know exactly the kind of tricks that you want to do. So when I bought my saddle, which was, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, I was kind of very much doing like wings and hangs, very girly tricks. That was why I kind of wanted a hoop saddle, I preferred it. But sort of in hindsight now, I'm sort of wishing I had a pommel, because now I've moved up a level and I'm using, you know, I want a pommel for doing some more of the vaulting tricks, for example. So definitely, like, take your time, try a few saddles, ask around, ask people if they'll let you have a little go, have a little look at their saddle. It's not a big deal. Everyone is always super proud of their saddles, so you know, I'm sure people quite happily let you have a little nosy at them, and then you can, you know, see what works for you and have a little try and see what you like. Almost all of the trick saddles are handmade, so you can kind of make it to whatever specification that you like. If you like a solid back handle, you can have one. If you don't, you don't have to have one. If you want a pommel or a hoop, that's fine. If you want added straps, you want under the neck strap, you want a stand strap, you want under the belly straps, they can all be added at the time or at a later date. The only like real issue with crossovers sort of becomes between the American and the Cossack trick saddles, as some of the tricks are a little different. So in that case, again, I would recommend trying both if you have any interest in certain tricks from either style of trick riding, but they can be adapted, and as you're making them, certainly those who are making saddles are expert in this industry, so they will be able to give you advice and usually make something happen.
So, my trick riding saddle. Now, I first came into contact with this style of trick riding saddle when I first moved to Germany to be part of the team at Aquila. For the Tytherleigh, it's a slightly different design of saddle like this, but it's also very similar. You know, the saddles have a seat like this. Now, for me, growing up and starting my trick riding career, I was trick riding in Cossack saddles, so I had the saddles with the cushion. So for me to come to Germany and trick ride in this, I'm not gonna lie, I absolutely hated it in the beginning. I found it so difficult to trick ride and adapt my trick riding to this style of trick riding saddle that in the beginning I said I don't want to do it. I was happy with my Cossack saddle, and now looking back, I laugh at myself because this style of trick riding saddle has become my favourite, and I will never ever go back to any other style of trick riding saddle. So yeah. So this is my saddle. It is a saddle built by a Frenchman by the name of Gerard Minier. Not sure if I pronounced that 100% correct. But it is a little bit of a mixture of a saddle. You can see that it is very much a Cossack style trick riding saddle with a sort of western seat pad. So yeah, it's different to any other saddle out there, and it's kind of similar in the same way. You know, it has 3 girths like normal trick riding saddles. It obviously has a pommel. You have the tree bar here. You have the hoop on the back to use. You have these straps here and these straps here, and there's one on the other side here. These are the straps that I added when I first got the saddle, because I intended to do under the belly, so I had to build my own under the belly ladders so that I could perform that trick. But yeah, this saddle is fairly basic, which for me I actually prefer. And yeah, let's dive in a little bit more detail now. So the reason why I like this style of trick riding saddle so much, and I won't go back to any other style, is simply because of the seat. You know, normal Cossack trick riding saddles have a cushion here, and for me I find the cushion to be quite big and bulky in most cases. Now in a saddle like this, with the seat, it's smooth, so when you're taking into consideration tricks like vaulting tricks, you would simply just slip off the side and slide down to the floor, which for me, you know, it makes the tricks easier, it makes them smoother, and all in all, it just makes them better. For me, anyway, this is all my personal opinion. And I don't like things that stick out, like the cushion here and on the back, where you can catch your legs on it and things when you're coming and jumping around the saddle. So for me, this is why I like it to be really simple. You know, just simple, slidey, smooth, and everything easy. So my least favourite thing about this saddle, really, I love this saddle so much and it's kind of perfect to me, but if I had to say something, it would be up the back here. Now for me, I really enjoy doing tricks like veer turns on the croup, and this handle just isn't really big enough for tricks like this. So for me, I would like to have a set of leather hoops off the back here, like this, to allow me to do a trick like this. But I love my hoop here, but it just means that I'm limited, that I can't do some of the tricks that I would like to do. So for this style of trick riding saddle, if you were looking at a price range, you would have to spend anywhere between 1,800 to 3,000 euros to be able to pick up a saddle like this. And it's well worth the money because they are the best in the business. My advice for those of you out there who are looking to buy your first trick riding saddles is, and I think anybody will say it, is don't rush. Take your time. Make sure you've had a few lessons and experienced different styles of saddles first. You know, because if you only experience one specific kind, then you might only want to buy that, but it might not be necessarily the best saddle for you. So, you know, get yourself out there, experience these different saddles, and to whoever it is that you're using as your professional, you know, use their advice, because it'll be super important when it comes to you making your final choice. So yeah, good luck, and me and Oscar say hi.
My name's Chrystal Waterhouse, and I used to be an acrobatic gymnast. I also did the aerial silks and circus, and I've been doing Digitovka and trick riding for about 4 years on and off. This is my saddle. Righty-ho, so this is the saddle I use, and it's pretty generic. You've got the pommel, back handle, nice big cushion for the seat. You have an extra strap here in case you want to do any under the belly tricks, or if you want to just hold in a different place for a certain trick, just gives you another option. We have a little slot here to put your stirrup leathers into, so it makes it all nice and tidy and easy to grab, so there's nothing flapping about in your way. The stirrups are really average, nothing special about those, but it does have a skashofka to tie the strips together under the horse's belly. It also has the normal 3 girths. They're made of nylon. I don't know why, they just are. And that's the basic autonomy of this saddle. I think this saddle's best suited for Digitovka, where you're doing a sport with all the weapons, the shashkas, the throwing knives. Mostly because the saddle is pretty much designed to keep you in the seat. It's a little arched, so it's easy to sit to, and also it's a bit of a figure 8 shape, so you've actually got little leg slots that help you move in and out of the saddle, but not too much, so it still helps you keep balance. Also, you don't want too many straps, because if there's too much cap on the saddle, it becomes harder and more distracting when you've got the weapons. So my favourite thing about this saddle is the cushion. It does sometimes get in the way of doing some tricks, like the vault. Sometimes you get caught on the sides, but when you start getting aches and pains, then having a really big cushion under your butt sometimes is quite nice. Right, so my least favourite thing about this saddle is definitely the pommel. It's, for one, it's a little bit too big for my child hands. 2, it's very oval shaped. I prefer it when they're more rounded, and also when they have a ball on the top, so it's easier to pivot around and to spin around. It just makes it more comfortable. Also, when I'm doing doubles tricks, I prefer a pommel that's more upright and a little bit longer, so that there's more room and more space to double people's hands up, so then you're not fighting for space on the pommel. If I'm doing tricks just by myself, then I prefer a pommel that's a little bit shorter and leaning more forwards. That way it gets in the way a little bit less and it's easier to work around. It just personal preference for everybody. No pommel is the same, they're all a little bit different. Again, it is simply what you prefer. So for anyone wanting to buy their own trick saddle, I would suggest
not buying something because it's the most popular at the time, or buying something just because it's what somebody else likes. Definitely do your own research. Think about the tricks or the shows that you might be doing in the future. Try and find something that you know is going to last and you're not going to have to change around too much. If you know that you're going to be doing a lot, try and get something customized for you specifically. If you're not sure about what you want, then get something that's more versatile, like a European saddle. If you want to do Digitovka, this is the better option. And if you're wanting to do American trick riding, then obviously an American trick riding saddle is the best for you. So definitely take a long think about the things that you want from your own saddle and then decide.
So guys, here's my trick riding saddle. As you can see, it's American. It's not often seen over here in Europe. How I came to trick ride in this saddle is originally I did learn to trick ride in a European trick riding saddle, and I still do from time to time. But when I moved to the US to work for Cavalier, there were a few tricks, for instance, like the hippodrome, that I couldn't do in my Cossack saddle, so I converted over to this one. And yeah, I just kind of fell in love with it, so I came home with it. That's simple. So that's how I came about my American saddle. So what can I tell you guys about the American saddle compared to the European style saddles and the Russian style saddles? Plenty. It's very different. For a start off, it's not a Western saddle that's been converted into a trick saddle. It is a professional trick saddle made by a professional trick saddle maker. Differences are being that I guess the big difference actually would be the cinches. Obviously, you've seen on a European saddle we have three smaller cinches, whereas three smaller girths, sorry. Whereas on the American we have two big cinches. I really like these. Firstly, because you can really easily adjust the tightness of the saddle, which of course is important for us trick riding. But also, I really like the weight distribution that the horse has around the waist when we are tightening them up. For me, I just feel like it's a little bit kinder and a little bit more comfortable. Breastplates, mine is not on at the moment, but I like the fact that the Americans customize their breastplates a lot with their names and various different decorations and so on. It's quite flamboyant and quite out there. It's kind of cool. Me, I don't actually trick ride in my saddle with a breastplate because I do find it stays on that well that I don't need to, but I do highly recommend trick riding always with a breastplate, because if your saddle does tend to turn, the breastplate is going to be the number one thing that does save you after your girth or your cinches. I have the hippodrome strap here, which I haven't attached properly. I'm sorry, it's not actually on at the moment. I've had it off because I've not been using it. But I really like the hippodrome strap for standing up. It's brilliant to be able to stand up and give your hands some freedom and be able to express yourself. And I guess the last thing I should mention maybe is my crupper handles for crupper work. They're quite big and stiff and solid. So they're fabulous for the guys that do want to do crupper work, or for the girls, crupper work is in vaulting, or for the girls performing tricks like tail drag and so on, or for me when I'm doing my suicide drags and things, it's great to be able to reach up and grab something that's quite sturdy and solid there. And obviously my pommel here is longer than most average European pommels, but the Americans are just like us. They adjust it to the height that they prefer. It's personal preference. Me, I like a tall pommel because I do more of what I would say is the girly tricks. So I just like that I'm able to get my hands around it nice and clean, because I'm not vaulting as much as I used to when I was younger. And obviously I've got fenders here instead of usual stirrups that you would see on an English style saddle or a European trick saddle. This took me a little bit of adjusting and getting used to, but once I found them incredibly comfortable. And what I will say about this saddle more than anything is when you're training new horses for trick riding, it's really a nice saddle, because there's a lot to kind of grab and to hold on to, and it's quite a sturdy saddle, and because it's got a bit of weight on it, it does kind of stay down and not fly everywhere when things are tending to go wrong, which isn't often. So I do like it for the young horses, and I do like to teach kids in it. So all in all, I think it's a really, really cracking saddle, and I think I've had it maybe 10, 11 years now, so I've really done almost all of my career on this saddle now. So, yeah, that's my American saddle. If I had to give you a con for my saddle, I wouldn't be a popular answer, but I would have to say maybe the weight when you compare it to the European saddles. It's quite a bulky, heavy saddle, which of course is great if you're running in rodeos and massive exhibitions, but when you tend to do a little bit of the smaller work, it's not in circle work, sorry, it's not impossible to trick ride in, but you do kind of feel it a little bit more bulky than you would the European saddle. So that would be probably my only con to the American saddle, but it's not a big difference. It's not such an outstanding difference that it would make me change from one to the other. So a rough estimate of price for this saddle, brand new, you're looking around the region of 3,000 to maybe 6,000 United States dollars. Roughly, and secondhand anywhere from the price range of 1,500 upwards. Again, it's a trick riding saddle. This is not something that should be bought cheaply. So it's definitely worth saving up a bit of money and investing. And plus, if you do invest in a good quality trick riding saddle, like this one will prove you, as I think it's probably 17, 18 years old this year, they will last you for life. So definitely, if you're buying a trick riding saddle, save your money and invest well. So guys, I hope you found this video helpful. Any questions you might have for me or the other riders, please drop them down in the comments box below. Don't forget to press the subscribe and the bell button, and give my video a big thumbs up because it really, really does help this channel. And I will see you next Thursday. Ciao for now.